doing anything, so a bit of a break, but I've been back on the bank for the last couple of weeks really. I've only been doing qualifiers again, and I'll give you a quick sort of rundown of where I'm at with it. I think I fished 4 or 5. First one was at Moorlands Farm for the first match of the season. Drew on meadow, drew a very average peg, and yeah, it was nice to get back on the bank. I didn't think I was on a peg that would give me much of a chance, but yeah, you give it 100% in these matches as always. So it was a very slow match. I think I had my first bite on the hour mark, sort of short 5-6 metres, where I just fed a few pellets and a bit of corn, and that was a carp. And then I've gone long, feeding 1, 2, 3 bits of corn and fishing a light rig through the water and just trying to get the odd bite. Now, what have I had on that? I've had 2 carp on that and an F1. Really slow match. And then with 15 minutes to go, I've had a few carp pop up in the peg, and I've managed to mug 3 big carp for a finishing weight of 49 pounds, which wasn't any good in the overall match on the day, but it was a comfortable section win. I think sort of 27 pounds a second in my section on that day. So looking back on the match, I think I fished a decent match for my first sort of like return back to the bank. But if I'm honest, I think if I was to sit down again, I'd have definitely gone down the route of just slapping in a pellet on the long pole. I've had sort of 2 or 3 foul-hooked fish, including a fish on the first drop in where I foul-hooked them on the drop basically, where the fish are in the peg but not coming to the bait. And I just think there's a chance of a few more bites by fishing a single hook bait and slapping it in up in the water. I don't think I could have troubled the eventual match winner, but you never know in these matches, and it's always good to pick up on any little things like that for your next sort of match really. After that I went to the Glebe on the bank holiday Monday. That was a non-event really. It was very, very cold. Like it'd gone warm the week before, and then that weekend a cold wind hit and I drew a peg on uglies on Lake 2 if you like. The wind smacked bang in my face, and it was that cold I didn't want to be on the bank myself, so any carp would have been down the other end of the lake out of the wind. And I've had 1 carp about 13-14 pounds on the feeder, which I got second chuck on it. Other than that, no bites other than 3 or 4 big liners where fish were spooking out of the peg basically. So that was an early bar for me. I think I gave it 3 hours before the cold got the better of me. Next match was Partridge, and I left a couple of really good pegs in the bag. Well, not me, but yeah, there was 4 pegs left in. 2 of them were pegs that I really fancied. I ended up on 87 on Lake 4, which I didn't really fancy. But again, looking back on the match, I've got my baits that I was fishing wrong, and didn't fish the best match really. Yeah, definitely should have fished either micro pellets or more probably ground bait, something with a higher traction, and fished for the stocky F1s that are in my peg. I don't think I was on many carp. I don't think there was many better F1s in the peg. And I've had a brilliant run in the last hour where I've caught more than double my weight on maggots down the middle, and that was nice. Nice to get a few bites and some fish pulling the elastic out. But I've had 40 pounds, and I was well and truly beaten off the next peg by somebody who'd got the tactics a bit better and fished a good match. And yeah, definitely got that one wrong. But it's one of them. Sometimes you need to get things a bit wrong to know what's right. And you know, all of these little things are what I've been sort of like looking out for to get my match fitness back, so I'm making the correct decisions on the bank. Talking of which, the next one was at Herringbone, where I definitely got it wrong. I've drawn a peg on Bridge 22, I think, which is on a point. Now it's a really good peg on the lake, and one of the better pegs on the venue, if I'm honest. And listening to people before the match, they were talking well over £100 to win the match, and I've listened to them, to be honest. And what this time of year, what I wouldn't normally do is go all out from the start of the match on and be aggressive. It's cold at night, and you really need to feel your way into a match. And this particular one I didn't. I had a big bush opposite me. I felt with the still bright warm conditions I'd have F1s ball up into this bush and I'll be able to loose feed and catch shallow, and I did, but stamp of fish was wrong. So I've had sort of 30 F1s which average 12 ounce to a pound, and that's the wrong stamp fish. You're not going to do any good catching them, and it's a key sign that basically I got it wrong. What I think I should have done, and it's all well and good talking about in hindsight because you don't know the result, but I definitely wouldn't have been able to get to the £100 needed to win the match fishing the way I did. To get a different result, I'd have needed to fish a different match, and I think that would have been going down the single hook bait route and fishing for carp and being patient. And there was a peg that was capable of it, so it's definitely a match that I've got wrong. I've had £62, I think 64 won the section, so I didn't embarrass myself, but if I'm honest, I do feel there was a chance, an outside chance of pushing 90 to £100, which would have framed or won the match. I think £98 won the match, just by fishing single hook baits, being patient and waiting for a proper stamp fish. Because they're definitely in and around the peg, I can see them. But yeah, like I said, sometimes it's good to make these mistakes because you can put things right on the next match. Which brings us on to the last match that I fished, which was at Partridge again. I've drawn 171 on Lake 6, which hasn't been a good area, if I'm honest. Looking at the weights in the opens, sort of like 40-50 pounds with a mega weight from that area. It's at the wrong end of the lake. Pegs 149, 151, that end. I feel as though that's where the fish were. But sort of learning from the previous matches where it's been quite obvious that there's been big fish to catch, but they're shying off bait. I started in the correct way and fished sort of bred across, corn skins, and didn't feed, and was just dead patient, waiting for the odd big fish to come along. I've ended up catching about 10-12 carp doing that, and then I've had a nice run of F1s to some cover down my edge in the last hour to finish with £84, which was mega from where I was. There's some good anglers on the spit where I was. £60 was the next best weight there. And I was close to winning the lake, to be honest. Another £1.5 and I would have won the lake, which I think was a mega result from where I was. And, I won the section, I didn't win the lake, I didn't frame. I come away from the bank happy knowing that I'd caught at the upper limit of what the peg was worth, so it was nice. So that brings me on to today's match, and it's my first round of the Fishing Association Supercup. Really looking forward to it. It's a new competition, and I quite like the format of it. It's definitely going to be more attractive to your open anglers that not necessarily have the confidence or want to sort of chase the big competitions with the big prize pots. They're just happy fishing their opens and that kind of thing. Basically, the format is you pay a £50 entry, and it's a knockout competition where you draw against people in your region. Fish an open match, and it doesn't matter whether you come second from last and the angler that you're up against comes last. As long as you beat them on the day, you go through to the next round, and gradually the numbers go down to get you to a final. So I think it's an interesting concept, and I think it's a really good one, and one that could be around for a few years to come. You know, like I said, you've got a lot of anglers out there that just fish opens, and for a £50 one-off payment, you've all of a sudden you've increased your chances of potentially, you know, winning £100,000 just from fishing your opens, and it adds a much bigger dimension to your fishing, you know. And the other thing that I like, which makes it more appealing, is, you know, you could win the prize fund and realistically only win one match in the season, which is interesting. It opens it up to a lot more anglers. The concept allows it to not be restricted to growth in any way, because, you know, you just add an extra round. If 100 more anglers want to fish, you just add another round, and it can grow exponentially that way. And, you know, the guy's putting a lot of money into it, so he's obviously investing into the future of the competition. And you know, do I think it'll always be 100 grand? Well, possibly not. The competition's got to, you know, make business sense. But even if it drops to 10, 15, 20, 30,000 pounds in the future to make the books balance, it's still a no-brainer for me that you can enter it with that off chance of doing it, because you know you're still going to be fishing opens locally on venues that you know. So it's a no-brainer to me, and yeah, I think it's one that's could be around for a few years to come. So my first round, I've drawn away, and I'm on the way to Old Hough Fishery. Now, I've fished this venue once before in a feature, but I've not fished a match, and you know, it's a nice thing to be fishing a new match on a venue. And looking at the weights, it's not going to be a big match. So the thing that's interesting about this competition for me is it's the first time in a very long time it's made me think about how I'm approaching the match, because you know, when you're fishing qualifiers, it's a no-brainer. You've got to fish the best methods on where you draw to catch the biggest weight. You're basically trying to get first place, and nothing else really matters. So a lot of the time you end up blowing your peg trying to force a weight that your peg's not sort of capable of. Whereas today it's a bit different, really. It's the first time I've had to worry about, you know, wherever I draw, I've got to catch the biggest weight of fish, and it starts getting the old you know, brain working of how am I going to do that. So like I said, it's a venue I don't really know, but looking at the weights, they're quite low. I know it's predominantly a carp venue, but there are F1s and silverfish, so I've got to take them into consideration. But for me, with the weather we've got at the minute, I think bites are going to be at a bit of a premium. So it's I've just took the dogs out for a walk. There's frost on the ground, and looking at the weather, it's going to get up to 18, 19 degrees. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's still. No matter what I fish for, bites are going to be at a premium, which brings me to think that I might as well fish for carp, because if I catch 10 carp at £5 a piece, I've got £50. If I catch 10 F1s or 10 eyed, I'm likely to have £10 or £15, or whatever the size are. I'm restricting the potential weight that I can get by fishing for those other species. So although I'm, you know, trying to catch the best weight out of my peg, I think the way to do that is actually to just go down the normal route of what I do and fish for the biggest fish in the lake, and yeah, try and catch the biggest weight in that fashion, if that makes sense. So for me, fishing for the eyed and the F1s are going to be a backup today, and using the learning from the previous sort of matches with the weather conditions, I'm definitely going to go down the negative approach, where my go-to is going to be to try and catch on single hook baits, whether that'll be on bread, dobbing across, corn skins, whether that's slapping a rig at fish, flicking a rig at fish. That's how I'm going to approach it, I think. Obviously it's all dictated by the draw, but yeah, that's how I'm feeling it. And it's interesting fishing, you know. It's not like winter this time of year where the fish are balled up, where you're just looking for one spot and then you go in and clatter them. The fish are on the move, so it brings another dimension into it, really. So the key to it is to stick with it and be very patient. So what I normally find when venues are fishing like this is the anglers around you, if they go in and feed, they'll have a run of fish at the start, and you think you've got your match wrong, because you're likely to drop behind in the first hour. But you can tell straight away that those anglers that are feeding, the peg's instantly on what I call like life support, where it's fading straight away, where you're catching the odd fish that wants to have a little bit of food, but it's not going to continue. You can tell it's going to die. So the way I like to do it is to be nice and patient, not necessarily fish the best area in your peg for the first hour, because you want to leave your peg as like a safe zone for any fish to back into. And the other thing to remember, like I said, is they're not balled up, so you've got to fish multiple spots and keep rotating, because you don't know where those where you're going to get a little gaggle of fish that you know you get your next run of bites from. So yeah, it's quite technical. I think that's going to be the best way to get the best weight out of my peg today, but let's do the draw and see where we end up. So that's the match finished with, and yeah, it's not very often that things go to plan in fishing, but today's been one of those really. So it's been a very hot day, very still, and I've caught how I sort of described this morning by not just fishing sort of single hook baits, not putting any bait in the swim. I've probably caught off about 8 or 10 different spots on bread, a 9mm sort of disc presenting about 8 inches deep, and it's just been a case of being really patient, swapping the lines and getting the odd bite, and I've ended up with 21 fish. Probably, I think I've had 17 that have dobbed off various different lines. I've had one on corn with sort of 15 minutes to go, sort of 5 metres, 2 small carp in the edge, and a 2-pound skimmer. And yeah, they've got 117 pounds 8, which has been enough to win the match. The lad that I've been up against, Mark, he's been really unlucky. He's come second in the match with 90 pound, and if I'm honest, I think I was on a better peg than him today. I've drawn an end on lucky dip, peg 9, peg 8. A bit more room than him. I think basically, yeah, he's been really unlucky for me to draw a better peg than him. In reality, he should have been going through really. He's had 90 pound fish maggots off the bottom, quite similar to how I've caught, but in a slightly different way. So yeah, learnt a little bit for the match, for the Fishing Mania